All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another breakdown. It's me, Sooky, my boy Cage. Man, stand him up. We got the page back. If you know, you know. We're ready after our UFC 303 breakdown, which I think we did pretty well. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. Like I've watched some of the results we had, and I think like especially the Ian Gary first MVP fight. I feel like I predict that one perfectly, and you had some great picks too.
I think the Pereira one was where we kind of broke down how it would look. And that was for me where I just felt like you watch that fight a few times in your head and Yuri dropping his hands. And it's just a very different style of striking to get used to. And I think high end kickboxing right now is doing really well in MMA overall.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I really like the cards as well. This week is a bit less exciting, but some underrated fights in here.
So we got UFC Denver headlined by Thug Rose, Namajunas, and Tracy Cortez. How you feeling about this one?
I mean, Tracy Cortez is pretty good, but I did like the Macy Barber matchup much more. Honestly, I feel like that would have been more competitive. This is still a good fight. I'm not a huge fan of women's main events. I'm just gonna be honest, but it is what this. The rest of the fights are looking good. So
I think the main issue we'd have to think about is what version of Rose are we going to get? Because Rose has the ability to live up to a 5 round pay per view main event, but also maybe fall, to a prelim style fight sometimes with how things look. I think she can deal with this distance management. I don't think Tracy's bringing a striking game that's going to make her too fearful of what's going to happen on the feet. And again, if we just see the best version of Rose, I just is a walk in the park, especially on short
I tend
notice.
to agree here, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We still have to talk about the other main card fights here, of course. So let's kick it off with Cody Brundage versus Abdul Razak Alhassan. I'll let you introduce these two. So
Yeah, so I mean, Cody Brundage, we've seen kind of like he's like that filler, right? We see him go against guys that the UFC really wants to push. Sometimes short notice, sometimes he's given the time for the camp. And it seems like as analysts, when you talk about Cody Brundage, you really look at the ground game. Can he stay on the feet, stay alive, get it to the ground, and find a quick submission to kind of make some of these big upsets happen? And in this case, I actually believe Alhassan's judo game could be the difference maker. If we don't see a quick finish on the feet in the first round, I just think that Brundage is constantly looking for those scrambles in transitions. But if Alhassan can get top game and kind of stay there against the fence, a fight that fans might start booing in if it gets boring. I think that's how we see
I
this one
do
going.
tend to agree here. Abdul Razak Alhassan obviously has the KO power here. He is the better striker, more explosive, but he's almost 39 when he's going to be fighting Cody Brundage, which is obviously a huge red flag. Cody Brundage, especially in the first round, is pretty good. The wrestling is good as well, but I feel like he does have some mental lapses, and he isn't as strong mentally, it seems. So I feel like this is going to be a lot of grappling, and you see these guys last 5 fights, 2 and 3 in those, and just the wins aren't over great guys overall. Like Cody Brundage beat Zach Reese and Jacob Malkoon, but he didn't beat Jacob Malkoon. He just got left out. And Abdul Razak Al beat Claudio Ribeiro and Alicia de Chirico. Both are not in the UFC right now. So the wins aren't high level at all from both guys. Although the Zach Reese KO obviously was cool, but I just not really impressed with both guys. I feel like Alhassan is the bigger, stronger guy, better striker as well. He'll just do more damage, but I don't see this being a finish, to be honest.
How do you feel about the line?
I do agree with the line minus 150, minus 160. That's about how I would put it as
Mhm.
well. Bronish, like I said, has some mental lapses, so you can't really trust him here.
Yeah, I will say if the line goes all the way up to say like minus 200 area, that I would actually recuse myself from even entertaining Alhassan in this fight because I think that lucky sub or however you want to kind of channel Cody Brundage's path to victory, we start getting into those implied odds percentages where he might be able to pull it off. And I think if this line closes a little, I think Alhassan becomes a very good option to kick this
Yeah, for
card
sure.
off.
And also, Abdul tires. Like at the end of the day, he's a big, strong guy, very
Mhm.
explosive, and he tires. So if Cody has some success in the first, Abdul might not have the power anymore in the second and third to win the fight. So that can happen as well. I don't see it, but you never know.
I tend to agree with that as well. So let's move on. How we feeling about Julian Erosa and Christian Rodriguez?
Listen, I've loved Christian Rodriguez in his last few fights, even in this loss to Jonathan Pierce. Like that's the first time I saw him. I actually bet against him there, but man, like it was very very close. I feel like Christian Rodriguez really showed himself in that fight. Short notice, up a weight class as well. Beat Joshua Weaves, but after that, like I had a feeling that he was gonna beat Rosas Jr. I kind of I felt like the hype on Rosas was too high and the hype on Christian Rodriguez was too low. And I had the same feeling with Simon and with Bulgarian. I bet him there. I even had a plus 1,000 ticket in my hands live after the first round because of Bulgarian dominating round one. So that was a good night for me. But yeah, he's definitely the better striker here, the better grappler as well. But the size advantage is what's kind of scaring me a bit because Julian Erosa, he tends to do better against guys that are smaller than him. He did get KO'd twice against people that were as tall as him or maybe even taller in Padilla and Caceres. I think that's a big issue for him. But against guys that are a bit shorter that can't reach the chin as much, I feel like he has a lot of success. And he is a vet, bro. Like he has some good wins against guys like Charles Jourdain, Sean Woodson even, and that ages really well. And even a win against Hakeem Dawodu. So this guy's has had some good wins. So it's kind of scaring me a bit. At the price tag, I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure. What do you think?
For me, I think that Julian Erosa is actually really good at distance management. I think his ground game is pretty sound. When you look at the way Christian Rodriguez fights, the reason why I've loved him so much, and like you said, had him pre-fight against Rosas Jr., those live bets where you're kind of on those ones together. It's one of those moments where he almost fights like a flyweight. The way the speed, the way they stay in the fight. The reason why I've fallen in love with the flyweight division is because the fights stay competitive because they seem to match skill for skill. And in this case, a part of me is just wondering, can he get past the long style of Erosa? Because if he can't finish Erosa in the first round, I think he's going to lose this fight. It's just one of those things where if you don't open the door to the close scrambles, the exchanges in striking, and the pushing against the fence, and all those little things, that's where Christian Rodriguez has found a way to make fights close, steal decisions, if you will, because people did not agree with the Bulgarian fight. In my opinion, a good Julian Erosa fight over 3 rounds, I don't see Christian Rodriguez winning. But scrambling, first round, things like that. And honestly, this weight class is probably better for him because he's had issues with trying to make lower weights. And right now, proper camp, taking on a real challenger in Erosa, there's the game plan aspect of it, right? Knowing that the first round is really where you can try and catch Erosa before he starts to get punched, figure out where he's at, and grind you out for 3 rounds. And he looks great doing it. Julian Erosa's recovery from the first round to the third round is some of the best we'll ever see because he really starts to learn how to fight you. This isn't game plan. He learns to fight you. And he always tends to look good as the fight goes on. So for me, the biggest thing I can say about this fight is the line is just a little wide. So if I were to take something pre-fight, it would probably be Christian Rodriguez to maybe get a finish in the first round if he can do that. But after that, it's pretty much Julian Erosa live unless something goes horribly wrong.
I agree with a lot of the things you said, especially about talking about the first round. I feel like Erosa has a hard time in round one. He gets caught there a lot, but once he warms up to the fight, once he gets his groove going, I feel like he does much better. His cardio is very good. His submissions are very good. He is gritty in there. Christian, like you said, he makes fights close. Like he fights to the level of his opponents, and he just gets a bit higher than them most of the time.
Exactly. It's almost like a learning period, right? Where he's just trying to get his trying to see what tells you might have. And the more interesting thing to say is it's not like it's any type of finish, right? You just have to catch him off guard early in the fight. Because I will even say him in a first round, if you're a heavy wrestler, watch out with those singles and double legs because he can catch your neck very quickly. He's got great arm chokes. He's got those like lanky style things in a fight in general, whether it's the stand up, the long jab, the great kicks on the ground, lanky style submissions that help him get wins, whether it's early or later in the fight. And I just think he's a dangerous fighter, especially for a guy that's now coming up more. to take on bigger guys.
Yeah, and I think there's a 6-inch height difference as well, and a 3.5-inch reach difference. I feel like the live bet is the perfect way to go here. Like after round one, I'm pretty sure C-Rod will beat Erosa convincingly here. Even if he knocks him out, you have no money here. It's all good. But I feel like you can risk a minus 200 tag here on Rodriguez. Although I do like him, I really do like him as a prospect. I feel like Erosa is a hard fight. And also, like, C-Rod wasn't even a big bantamweight. He was an okay bantamweight. I'm not sure why he missed weight 2 times and because of it, beat 2 big prospects, but he's up at 145, and I really don't like it, to be honest.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, especially because he's the guy that point fights with grappling. He's a grappling point fighter, whereas Julian will be able to maintain some distance and use that long style to, I think, avoid those areas where Christian tends to steal fights. So I think we're pretty much on point with that one together. So let's move on to this beauty of a fight. Let's have you kick this.
Obviously, Jean Silva is coming in on short notice, back-to-back cards. He's moving up in weight from 145 to 155, fighting Drew Dober, the Giga Chin. This is a good fight. Minus 110 on both sides. I feel like the size difference won't be too big here. Drew Dober is just 5'8" at 155, and Jean Silva did miss weight at featherweight. So he's a pretty big featherweight himself. So I don't think that the size difference will be big here. Jean Silva has a lot of power. So does Drew Dober. It makes sense that this is a near evens fight. I'm not sure who to go with here. It's a very hard fight for me to predict, man. I feel like Jean Silva is the up-and-coming guy. He has more talent. He is better all around. But Drew Dober, he's the veteran here. He has had so many fights, so many big names he's fought. So I can't be sure here who wins. I'll go with Drew Dober ever so slightly. I'm not confident in this at all, but I feel like his experience and him just being a career lightweight, knowing how to deal with like big names like that, I feel like he should be able to get this done here.
I think the one thing we can try to exploit in this fight is the idea that some guy's going to get cracked or someone's going to get finished really quickly. And we'll talk about that a little later. The great thing about Jean Silva is we kind of have recent tape to study him on. And the one thing you can say is he tends to use that time, find spots, see areas where he might be able to kind of unleash, because the second round against Jourdain, once he got a taste, like a smell of that, like smelling the blood in the water kind of thing, he just went for it, and he knew it was just a matter of time in that fight. And in this case, I mean, you could even make the argument with how we incorporate the fight nerds camp now with wearing those glasses at the end of the fight. It's one of those things where you could actually see him trying to test the waters with some cage work, takedown attempts, things like that, just to get Drew Dober second guessing what might be coming instead of just having like a rock'em sock'em robot style fight. So there's a lot of areas where, as the fight progresses, you can kind of see how they approach it. Who wants to stand and bang more, and who's going for the win. And I think I agree with you in the sense of, in a stand and bang fight, you gotta give Dober a bit of an edge just because of all the looks he's already seen. Even if he doesn't do the tape study on Jean Silva, even if he isn't 100% invested in just trying to break him, the amount of guys he's gone against really will help him in a fight if it just stays standing.
Yeah, it makes sense. A lot of the things you've said. But Drew Dober has been trying to fight Mike Davis. He was supposed to fight Mike Davis. And Mike Davis is a great grappler. So I feel like Drew Dober is ready for the grappling. Yeah.
Not worried. No, I totally agree.
And, I just feel the experience is too much here.
I agree.
I'm not sure if this will end early, though. I feel like...
I don't think it will.
No, I don't think so either, because both guys have a good chin. They have good power, but... I feel like they will respect each other's power. Like Charles Jourdain, he didn't respect it. He was fearful of the power of Jean Silva. It's a big difference.
And he looked fearful by the second round. You know what I mean? The body language has changed completely.
100%. Drew Dober is scared of anybody. Come on. This guy has fought Islam Makhachev. This guy has fought the craziest of names. He's a scared
exactly.
So I feel like his power isn't crazy either of Drew Dober's. He has one punch knockout power, but that doesn't happen too often. I feel like Silva will be
his
responsible.
technical style with the lower kicks and things like that, you're 100% right. He's definitely a technical style fighter. And you know what's funny about guys like Dober is when you have that technical style that's based on certain combos, certain style of movement, you can either look really, really good against the guy who can't find your reads, or you end up in a very close fight, potentially taking a loss, but it ends up very competitive. And I think that is the area where we're going to be. But I agree that over 3 rounds, I think Drew Dober is going to be able to take this
win.
win.
This being a decision?
To be honest with you, I bet if I looked at the line right now, I think there's a higher chance of it being a decision than the books think, what I would say.
For sure. I think we looked at the lines as well.
Yeah.
Over 1.5 is
over 1.5 was basically minus 120. 125.
Over 1.5 is at minus 125 from minus 105.
That's what I see. I see minus 125. Yeah.
It moved. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we have to be quick here. But yeah, I really do like over the over 1.5 here.
Which we'll revisit a little bit later.
Of course. Another good fight, in my opinion. Gabriel Bonfim versus Ange Loosa.
The first thing I'm going to say is I just think the line's a little wide. For a guy who tends to stay in fights scared, whatever, it doesn't matter. I poked the last fight. Brian Battle was not pleased with how that one played out. Brian Battle is one of the fastest rising stars, in my opinion. His style is really becoming something special to watch. But in that fight, you see the way Loosa serves. And in fights where, a lot of people are predicting Gabriel Bonfim to just get an early submission, get the takedowns. But Loosa has been in there with some pretty good guys and hasn't been finished yet. And for me, this line is just wide. Can I give you a complete prediction on how I think this fight plays out? No. But do I think that the implied odds are telling me that Ange Loosa has a better chance of winning this fight in some grinding style 3-round fight where Bonfim can't find his offensive success? 100%. Why wouldn't he be able to? At that price tag, I'm seeing him as high as plus 280 on Caesars. Like, that high line for a guy who, one, has never been finished and is just probably eating shit for the fight that he just had. People probably don't believe in as much for just taking the eye poke and calling it quits. Like that is probably where some of that value is coming from.
It makes sense as well what you're saying. And with Gabriel Bonfim, the fact that Ange Loosa isn't getting finished is a huge problem for Bonfim because he gets tired quick. Like, even in his win against Trey Waters, if you look at that fight, like, it was almost 2 years ago, but he wasn't having much success in the striking. Like, once he did get him down, he got the phone flu choke, but he wasn't looking good. And he was getting tired a bit as well, but Trey Waters just not a good defensive wrestler. And Bonfim did lose 8 months back already against Nicholas Dalby. Nicholas Dalby, though, just a very hard opponent for a guy like this because he's always moving. He is good defensively in the wrestling and in the striking. I feel like Loosa, I think he has better cardio than Bonfim, but he doesn't have the cardio of a guy like Nicholas Dalby. He won't be able to crowd Bonfim like Dalby was, which is going to be a problem.
That's all he needs to do.
Yeah, exactly. So Gabriel Bonfim, I feel like he will win here, but minus 400 is crazy to me because he could tire out after round 1. And Ange Loosa is strong. He's big. You look at that neck. He's built different, literally. When you say built different, that's fucking Ange Loosa, bro. I'm not seeing a quick finish here.
Yeah.
Maybe round 2, I would... there's something that's telling me round 2, but I'm not liking the minus 400 like here.
And for me, just the amount of tape we get to watch when the years and years of just watching fighters in general. When you look at this fight and you look at past fights of Bonfim, I'm not seeing this killer instinct where the finish is just going to happen. Even in my processing of this fight, I could eat my words. It's not like I can just so easily say that Bonfim is going to find a finish at some point in this fight. I actually personally think it has to come in the first round with some show of high-end power and technique at the same time, where he gets him to the ground. It's a very favorable position to lock in a submission that he's very experienced with, especially in competition. It's moments like that where I think a first-round finish could happen. But outside of that, this just screams grinding fight. It screams just a grinding, tough grappler style fight.
Also, the two finishes Bonfim has in the UFC have been guillotines because of mistakes of his opponents. Like I said, the neck of Loosa is thick. You're not putting this guy in a guillotine and finishing it.
Mhm.
If he has the heart, if Loosa has the heart, he can survive it 100%. Most guillotines you can survive. It's just, do you have the heart to survive those?
And give Loosa a bit of an edge to it, the gym that he trains at. Like, he's going to get those looks. He will 100% get those looks at Killcliff. And I think that's where you could give him a lot of respect in terms of where people think he's going to lose this fight. I think it's a little overblown. It's a little out of proportion. The line shows that.
And now we're talking about, I might even put like half a unit on Ange Loosa maybe after round one, because if Bonfim will probably dominate round one. That's, I do expect it. So he, like, Ange Loosa will probably be at plus 600-700 at that point. Maybe like quarter of a unit would be smart to put on Loosa, because he has pretty good cardio for a big guy like that. I feel like he did okay against Rhys McKee, although he did get tired around 3. AJ Fletcher, he showed to be good in round 3 as well. Near Lazes, competitive. And before that, out of the UFC, not really important. But he even had a good 3 rounds fight against JDM. So
exactly, it's like the 3 rounds at the UFC level. It screams a lot of competitiveness to me, because I personally will hold 3 rounds in the UFC, win or lose, at a very high level. And like you just said, and I truly believe this, a lot of guys who are submission specialists will try and rely on mistakes. And in areas where I do believe Ange Loosa, to not have been finished this far in his career, is going to show that type of know-how.
For sure, I do agree. I don't like the fact that he quit against Battle, but it is what this. Battle's a much different fighter. He is a better striker. I feel like he would beat Bonfim as well, but yeah, it is what it is.
Oh, I think he's, yeah, no, you're 100% right on that. I think in terms of skill level, Brian Battle's on his way up. He's certainly on his way up.
For sure. So let's go to the co-main. Santiago Ponzinibbo versus Muslim Salikhov. Not sure why this is the co-main. Probably because they're OGs of the fight game. We're ranked at some point. They're far from ranked now. Ponzinibbo 37. Salikhov is 40. Both are 2 and 3 in the last 5.
A lot of people are saying, based on that typology picture, that 40 years old might be a bit of a stretch. He might be pushing 50, but it's black and white. He looks like he was in a film in the 40s or 50s. It's insane.
Yeah, but he moves pretty good for a 40-year-old. A lot of people are saying that he looked really bad against Randy Brown, but honestly, I disagree. I feel like he was doing well until he got killed, and of course he got killed, so it doesn't really matter. But he didn't look 40 to me. Well, Ponzinibbo in his last fight against Holland did look old, and his win against Alex Morono, which is aging terribly right now, he looked so bad until he got the knockout. He looked terrible. So at 37, almost 38, I feel like he's a different 38 than a normal 38-year-old. I feel like Ponzinibbo is 50 in 5 years because he had so many injuries, so many knee injuries.
Wars. I agree. I 100% agree, because the transition from that injury into the Lee fight, that Beza fight, even though he won, probably took a good amount of time off of his fight life.
That was a war as well. I remember that fairly well. Split decision of Geoff Neal, but that's weird because Geoff Neal, he's up and down. He's a weird time fighter. Pereira split decision loss. At welterweight, Pereira wasn't that great either. Now at middleweight, he is amazing, but I feel like Ponzinibbo is just a weird guy that. Yeah, definitely. Ponzinibbo is just a weird guy to fight. But I feel like Salikhov should be able to get this done, in my opinion. He is a big underdog here, plus 165, plus 170 at some places. But I like him here. I feel like he's the faster guy. He has the better kicks. And
the power factor. There might be a bit of a power factor there too, I think, with the age difference. Sure. Yeah.
But I think this will just be like another hard split decision fight that you probably didn't want to watch, but it's there, so you do. But it's going to be a split decision, in my opinion, for Muslim Salikhov.
Okay, so the one thing I wanted to actually check was what this fight is to go to a decision. And the only reason I say that is if this, for any reason, Oh yeah. So right now, if you think it's going to a decision, you're actually at the dog end of it. So for it to go to a decision is actually plus 110. For it to end inside the distance is actually pretty favorable. So, and in my opinion, the reason I say that is just if it's a very active, first half of the fight, it almost just might be exhaustion and output that could end this fight. And for me, it's really tough to call. I'm going to be totally honest with that one because you can see Ponzinibbo's chin just giving out at any point in time, especially with the way Salikhov strikes. I think people mistake that Russian flag all the time for just like heavy wrestlers and grapplers, but Salikhov has a very good striking game, and I think he's one of those like kickboxers who has that wrestling background. But his strikes they hurt. They come with power, and I find his timing has always been pretty good. So that's where this fight could be
you just said
exciting.
something terrible.
Outside of that,
You said that Salikhov is a kickboxer. He's a kung fu master, bro. You know that, right? He is a kung fu master.
I just mean like in terms of MMA striking, like he has the ability to mix them up.
Yeah,
Were you just making a joke right now? Okay, sorry. I think you were trying to make a joke. But yeah, the Kung Fu Master has a great ability to mix up the kicks and the strikes. And I just think that his ability to use them to even open up other areas of the fight where he can try and take over the fight is really important here. Because Ponzinibbo is the kind of guy where he almost just welcomes wars.
But Salikhov does have a black belt in Kung Fu, just so you know. I'm not sure if you know.
Oh, I know. I was agreeing with you. I thought you were telling me that he's not a good kickboxer. And I was just trying to make a point that like in MMA, like I think his skills really reflect a good kickboxer.
Yeah. Okay. All good. I'm going with Salikhov. You do too. But what's your prediction? Like KO or decision?
To be honest, I will lean Salikhov, but I think this is one of those fights where even with weigh-ins, like I usually post my final picks on Instagram just to kind of get a real feel for where things are at pre-fight, because the best work comes when that bell starts ringing and we're just looking at those lines for the best possible outcome.
For sure. So you got a decision or knockout?
I'm actually leaning towards this fight ending early, unless they get super tired and it looks boring. If they're able to do some real damage in the beginning, I think the damage could be enough where that exhaustion could lead to one of them finding not a lazy finish, but a big enough shot that puts one of them out.
That makes sense.
But don't be surprised if this fight looks like a heavyweight fight for the second half of the fight and it just goes to a really dirty, type of decision too.
Yeah. One thing I'll say to end this breakdown is Salikhov's cardio isn't the greatest. We've seen this against the Leech. He was doing good in the beginning, but he got tired and finished there. So there's something to look out for as well after round number 1. But yeah, overall, I'll probably just stay away.
That's the reason I tend to see that line. Yeah, I'll agree. I think this is a stay away to see how they both look at weigh-ins and even see if these lines move a little bit. Because for me, the reason where I would agree with you is just the value, right? If you're giving me this to go to a decision based on everything we just said at plus 110, I mean, there's obviously more value on it to go to a decision than it is to finish because you're seeing this ability for them to tire themselves out, not really find a finish. Like think about how many times we see that on a fight card. So it's a more likely outcome at dog money. And you're kind of hoping that one of these guys get a finish later in the fight when they're tired and beat up, which is a little less likely, So
next up, the main event of the evening, Rose Namajunas versus Tracy Cortez. Thug Rose versus, I don't think Tracy has a nickname, but yeah, this is
I've thought of a few.
Yeah, we're not going to be
doing that ourselves here.
Yeah, we're not going to be doing that to ourselves. Rose Namajunas, obviously the former champion, much more experience. 12-6, 11-1 in Tracy Cortez's side. She hasn't lost in a long time. I think she lost in her debut, and since then she hasn't lost since. I am right as always, of course. 11 fight win streak, but if we look at the fights 9 months ago, Jasmine Jasudavicius, not a big win in my opinion. Melissa Gato, Justine Kish, Stephanie Egger.
Fights, like let's be real, like these are fairly favorable fights on paper for her, in my personal opinion. They're on the come up, which makes sense, but I think this is the first real test in terms of her skills versus another. The Blanchfield split decision is probably her best win so far.
People did think that she lost that one, but exactly. Yeah, also Blanchfield's last fight, you saw it, and really unimpressive, and it is what it is. I'm just gonna be straight here. I like Rose here. I think she's better overall. I think she definitely has a better striking, more experience. She has good BJJ. She has good wrestling defense as well. She looked good against what's her name, Amanda Ribas, and I feel like Ribas is better than Tracy Cortez. So I'll just keep it at that. I feel like MMA math Rose, although she's a bit smaller, I think she's better everywhere. And if she can be the girl like Hebot at 125, she should be able to be the girl like Tracy at 125 as well. Although Tracy is a good wrestler, I don't see her having a lot of success, and I see Rose just standing up whenever she wants and just winning a 50-45 decision here.
Yeah, so my biggest thing with this one, and we'll echo how we started the fight or started the recording, but it's the version of Rose that I'm the most concerned about always. The emotions get the best of her a lot. This is a fight where I think the UFC is giving her a very good chance to hit the reset button while still taking on bigger names on the come up. Because in terms of a record, in terms of where she's at in her career, you could make the argument that she might even deserve to fight a little bit above the talent she's taking on. But at the same time, gatekeeper opportunity against high level talent to find her footing again, find some consistency, because the UFC is almost punishing her for that Carla Esparza fight. You can make the argument that those big name fights, those big pay-per-view fights are a little ways away till she can prove that she can be Thug Rose more consistently. And in this fight, unless, we saw Cortez with these very aggressive style entries where she's getting people down and finding submission attempts and not having to push people against the fence and really grind that style. I just think Rose's footwork is just too good for that. I do believe that even an average version of Rose will be able to land enough while moving out of the way. It's why, if Carla Esparza is, one of the best female wrestlers we've ever seen in MMA, the one thing she did in her worst showing ever was just not play into her game. So if the worst version of Rose ever we've seen was able to just avoid the offensive game of a wrestler, maybe we can see her have a bit more output and win this striking distance style fight.
For sure. I 100% agree. I do like her here, probably by decision as well. Is there a prop for Rose by decision? I really do like that one.
Oh, guaranteed there should be now.
Rose to win by decision at plus 110. She is minus 218. So plus 110 is not crazy to me. I feel like Tracy has good cardio as well, so she should be able to go 5 rounds, even though it is short notes.
So what's interesting for me about that one? Like I like the number, but when I'm looking at these props for me, it's more about strikes landed, strikes absorbed. I think that Tracy does a good job on the feet. But when you look at I haven't really seen her in a 5-round fight, and that too against a girl like Rose, who has that, that classic McGregor style of striking, precision beats power, timing beats speed, blah, blah, blah. I think Rose, at her absolute championship level best, has been able to show that in the past. I'm not saying she's going to get a finish here, but I'm just saying the absolute best version of Rose over 5 rounds and how you might visualize this fight if Rose is winning. She might be piecing up Cortez on the feet so badly that a stoppage could be there in the last few rounds. But again, I think it comes down more to how good is Rose going to look. Because if it's just a pitter-patter, last the 5 rounds, I think the decision at dog money is a great play.
Yeah, but this is also 125 where she is the much smaller girl. She doesn't have the pop that she had at 115 against the much smaller girls. Tracy is pretty big. Like she is. Yeah, she's pretty jacked. So I really don't see her finishing him. Maybe a submission after Tracy tires, like in round 4 or 5, but not in striking.
So let me ask you that. What do you think Rose's submission prop is?
I mean, honestly, plus 500, plus 600. That's something I would think it is. I mean,
plus 800 is the current line.
Understandable, but that's not something I would bet.
Yeah. So for me, pregame is all about those props. You can't get them live. So if there was ever something you were trying to do your research and study value for me right now, the biggest thing I love is significant strikes. So if we think this fight's going to a decision and we see a relatively good version of Rose in this fight, I think something like her significant strike prop might be good, but 85.5 is saying that you're seeing a very good version of Rose on the feet for an extended period of time, and she's not getting pushed up against the fence, getting taken down, trying to find her way back to her feet. So little areas like that is where I would focus a lot of my time in pre-fight, is if you're spending all this time breaking down the fights, try to find those areas where you can get the value that you won't be able to get once the fight starts. Because say Cortez goes off in the first round and has a really good first round, but she starts to fade, I mean, the numbers you're going to get on Rose are going to be spectacular.
For sure. And for Tracy, it's 75.5. Looking at her fights makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Not something I'm looking at
Mhm.
either. Yeah, I think we got a main card covered. I would like to talk about the prelims a bit. Like Van versus Johnson is a firefight. I love
Fire.
flyweight prelim fights, bro.
My
Like
favorite.
they're the best, bro. And this is going to be crazy. I see this just staying on the feet. Van, a beautiful boxing. Johnson is a good striker, very weird, but he is good as well. He is much older here. I think he's like
Mhm.
11 years older here.
Yeah.
I like Van. I think he is minus 185, and that makes sense. I like him here by decision, probably because Johnson is tough and big.
So the thing about this fight, and this is what I always look for the most, is how do I see the value of the line? I think this line is pretty wide, and the reason why I say that is when you look at the body of work for Johnson, the biggest critique you can have, whether you're a better on him or you're just watching him fight, is the gas pedal aspect. He stays alive in the fight, but you don't see him go crazy with the output. So he's just constantly playing to his opponent, and in this case the body work from Van is like probably one of my favorite things. He punches like he's a heavyweight. I really enjoy watching him fight. But for me, it's like if Justin's able to avoid those areas a little bit, that big pressure, that big boxing that Van brings to the table, getting him at plus 180, plus 190 for a guy who's been looking really good, taking all the tests in. And, I bet him pregame and live in his last fight. I just had so much faith in him being able to at least deal with that style. This one's a little different. The pressure in the boxing is going to test. It reminds me of Adesanya. When we used to, I love no matter what, but people started getting on Adesanya about his ability to just manage, coming up to him. No one was pressuring him. The moment guys started to pressure Adesanya, we started to see a little bit of those holes. And I think Johnson, this is probably one of his toughest fights to date because how he tends to stay in fights, I think Van has the ability to nullify that, which is constant pressure, using boxing to get to the body, get him against the fence. I just think Johnson's really good against the fence. His movement's really good at flyweight, and he seems pretty good everywhere. And he has the experience to eke out these close decisions. For me, seeing that kind of guy at almost plus 200
makes
is
sense what you're saying, but also Joshua Van, like I said, he's 22, and every fight you see so much improvement from him. He is young and he is so good against Bunas as well. Like he looked really good in the grappling as well. He
incredible.
wasn't
Yeah,
out of the water there, and
it's poise. Like you're enjoying the poise for his age because no matter who he's fighting, the improvement's there. He stays in the fight. I totally agree.
yeah, and I feel like the boxing is just better overall. And Charles Johnson, if you watch back the Maxim fight, I think that was his second to last fight. He was getting stung there bad, and Maxim isn't even as good of a striker as Joshua Van is.
Boxer, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Van might hurt him even in the first round and finish him there. I don't see it because Johnson hasn't really been finished that much,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the UFC. I don't think he's been finished in the UFC. I see Van just winning here by decision. Oh, Johnson has never been finished, so
No.
yeah, I don't see it. I don't see Van being the first.
And it's mostly really good wrestlers that are able to deal with him. Makayev, Durden, he's the kind of guys he's losing to. So for me, it's like depending on the version of Van that we see, I think they're both going to test each other in the ways that they win fights. So with the pressure and all of that Van brings, I think he's going to have to find a secondary way of stealing rounds because of Johnson's ability against the fence, his footwork, and vice versa, right? I don't think Johnson's going to be able to like bang, bang, to land a few, take a step back, find these scrambles, get a few up areas where he looks like he's winning the fight. Because it's going to be a barn burner. This is going to be strikes thrown. There's going to be power behind them, and I think both of them are going to get tested very well to see how else they can try and win fights.
One last thing I will add before we go to the next fight because we've been too long on this one, but this is just a great one.
Yep.
If you watch back the Charles Johnson versus Hadley fight, in the first round, Hadley won the first round, and Hadley isn't half the striker Joshua Van is. Hadley only lost because he got tired, which he always does. Joshua Van is not getting tired. This guy, I feel like he starts a bit slower than the guy like Hadley, but like in minute 2 or 3.
Well, but his output shows you that his cardio is there. I 100% agree
I feel
with
like
you.
He will definitely win rounds 2 and 3, and even round 1. I feel like he should be able to win that as well. All right, Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Fatima Kline. Is there anything you would want to add about this
I'm
fight?
just going to say I did my little bit of research with Fatima Kline to be able to get her fight. She's an Aaron Blanchfield training partner. I think they're grappling partners. And you know what? The fact that she's a favorite right now tells you that she's already made a name for herself on the MMA regional scene. Double champ from CFFC. Little things like that stand out to me. I just don't know how well she's going to be able to deal with the distance management. I think she's a really good ground fighter. And Jasmine has times where she looks really great, but she can also look very average. And I think that's where the line shows you it's a relatively close UFC newcomer on Shredis looking like a favorite. I think that it's a very close fight depending on the versions of both fighters you're going to see.
Another here versus Jasmine. Jasmine, I didn't like her when she had to stand against a girl like Tracy Cortez. And Cortez isn't even that good of a striker. And she was getting outstruck there easily. So I got Fatima Kline. I think she is the better striker as well. Like
I actually looked into this pre-fight to see if she was a dog, because if she was an underdog, I think I would the fight a bit more. But getting that line, I'd rather see her have some UFC jitters in the first round. Maybe Jasmine steals the first round, and then all of a sudden she wakes up, she starts getting some takedowns, fights for some subs. We could probably get her at a plus 150, plus 160 live line to win 2 rounds. I mean, I'm all about that life.
Next up, Luana Santos versus Mariya Agapova. If you like plus money, I'm telling you, Luana Santos is not good. She is not a good striker. She has very sloppy striking. She just goes in there and just throws. Zero defense. No real power. No real strength either. So when it's against a clinch, I feel like Mariya is just a stronger girl overall. The problem with her is she tires because she can pace herself. She just goes crazy all the time, and she uses too much power in the clinch and in the grappling, which I really dislike. But man, I don't like Santos at all. I feel like skill-wise, she is not the better fighter here. I feel like Mariya, if she's worked even a little bit on her grappling, she should be able to do it. And I can't say I trust her to do it, but I will trust her here to do it. At almost 4-1 odds, I feel like, I feel like she should be able to at least make it a close fight, to which I can say, all right, it was not a bad bet.
Yeah, I was just looking into this with you because I agree. Numbers, it's all about the numbers. I was just trying to see if we could figure out where she spent most of her camp. I did not really look into that for this card. Easier to find that information for bigger fights and bigger cards as well. But it's just that type of fighter, right, where most of the problems are outside of the octagon. You just see it affect them. And we just talked about Rose, right? Like, Rose is such an emotional fighter, because you're right. You know, at her best, what we've seen from her is pretty good. She just needs that ability to manage her game plan, like manage whatever you're not good at. You should really be aware of that when you're in the fight. Like you said, if you have to manage 100 strikes over 3 rounds, 60 of them in the first, you know, it's one of those things where you start to develop an understanding of how you should be approaching a fight where you don't get the finish. And I just think the line is way too wide if we're saying that her biggest issue is managing her cardio, managing her output early in the fight to be able to get the win. So I 100% agree with you on this.
Perfect. And Luana isn't a good striker. What Mariya meant, she is one of the best strikers in the division.
You did your homework on Luana, then went and saw this line and just threw up a little bit in your mouth.
I took the advice of Ange here, and I looked at the odds after I did my research.
Oh, so that's even more throw up in your mouth.
Definitely. So I was.
Yeah, trust me, it's worse.
But still, like with Mariya, you just can't be sure because she is so weird with it, and she has a lot outside of the octagon, which I really don't like to hear. So if I bet it will probably be half of you.
You know what's interesting about this, and I'm going to back you up in a very indirect way. When we talk about Rose, we just kept comparing them in terms of the emotional style of fighting. And the way we believe Rose is going to win that fight, we're justifying a minus 200 line with a fighter who tends to have similar issues like that. So when we go back to this fight, when you talk about the opponent the way you have about Luana, obviously not a Cortez to Rose ratio of skill, and you're getting Mariya at almost plus 300. In my opinion, is that
4-1?
And not take that and hope that she does something with it. That's what I'm wondering on that type of line.
Exactly, and
especially in women's MMA.
Even if she loses a 29-28 fight, it's still
you got that line. Yes, we talk about that all the time. All the time. In a close fight, we say this, right? When you're betting live in a women's MMA fight and a fighter looks relatively good in the second and even some of the third round after losing the first, and she's some plus 200, plus 300, you bet it. You bet it. I guarantee you do the math the value of the line itself and the outcome, you're out on top 100%. You definitely have made profit because the lines are ridiculously wide for how the judges are scoring the fight.
100%. So, and this is a women's fight as well. So there's always weird judging there. So I'll just go with Mariya.
Not to take too much of your time talking about Mariya, guys, but what we're basically saying is just take this line, use that time to just cheer for a plus 300 dog that probably pretty
Next
good
up,
path to win.
Montel Jackson versus Damon Blackshear. Another dog I'm taking here. Let's keep this one a bit shorter.
Well, you loved him. You would stop talking to me about this guy.
I feel like he is the much better grappler. He has good cardio as well. And we've seen with Montel Jackson, once someone gets a hold of him, he doesn't deal well with it. Even Julio Arce won the first round against him, like just by holding him against the fence and just keeping him there. And Damon is big, strong, good grappler as well. So I see him just winning this probably by decision.
Yes, exactly. And it's the style of fight, right? I think that's where you've just been so gung-ho about it, because if he can just get that range close and get him up against the fence a lot, it's going to look ugly. It's going to look ugly, and you're going to want him to strike just for a pretty fight. But the way this fight can go is just, you nailed it, right? Those fighters are doing their best work in the UFC right now. Those are the guys that if you bet on them every time, or that grinding style push against the fence, moved around the second, third round, like those are the guys coming out on top a lot, right? And the big one that I wanted to kind of talk to you about was the Farid Basharat fight was the one where I was like, Farid looks that good defensively, right? Like that's the one where I was just like, okay, so that's the guy that can get the best of you. We don't see that, you know what I mean, as an opponent in this case. So I really think you've hit the nail on the head with this one.
Even then, Damon had success against Farid in the second round by taking his back and controlling him for about 2 minutes there. So
yeah, and that line was wide, right? Like that line was super wide. I could probably find that right now. In that fight, because you remember pretty well, Farid closes a minus 450 favorite.
He didn't look like a minus 450 there at all. I feel like minus 200 would have been good there. But even then, it was kind of iffy because Damon did have a lot of success. But Damon lost there because Farid is a grappler. A very good one at that as well. Montel is a better striker here, though. He has a lot of power. He has knocked down a lot of his opponents. But I'm not really that impressed.
Our boy Damon's he's never lost by strikes. He's never been finished. He's never been finished.
Good, man. He's big. He's good. The cardio is good as well. So I just like him here overall.
And we've already said that this guy fights half the time on short notice. So that means nothing to us right now.
Exactly. So next up, last fight, we're going to be talking about Josh Fremd versus Andre Petrosky. A very weird fight.
Very weird, bro.
I'm not betting this, bro. I'm never in my life.
I can't. I'm taking a break. I'm sitting up for the rest of the card, and the card starts.
What's the odd on Andre Petrosky knocking himself out on Josh Fremd's hit?
Right? Like how can we take the fight? How can we analyze a fight where tape means so much and that was the last outcome? It's very difficult to quantify that, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. Petrosky has a bad chin, he has bad cardio, bad striking. He has good grappling, and he has great wrestling. Josh Fremd, he is iffy. Like he's okay everywhere. Very average, but he's tall. He has good cardio. Doesn't have a lot of power. He's a better striker. If he wins, he keeps the fight on the feet. He probably loses round 1. Probably wins rounds 2 and 3, but at minus 120, I'm not betting this for my life.
You know what's hilarious is I was just going to use the DK line and I checked best fight odds. So this is minus 110, minus 110. Like this is even on DK right now. So even before we looked at the updated line right now, it's like this is a stay. Even live, you don't even know because it could be a dominant first round. Then all of a sudden, one guy gets tired. Then he has a second win in the third. Like you won't know how to call this fight. You just won't. It'll be very tough to say. And the only area I was going to try to pick your brain a little bit for this one. I don't want to spend too much time on it. But how do you feel about Petrosky in round 1?
What I like about him are his front chokes, and what I've seen from Fremd, he got into a lot of front chokes against Hernandez, and he had like in the first round especially, he almost got finished there a few times. And Petrosky has great front chokes, so there could be a problem there. Maybe like if it's round 1, you should take submission in round 1. I'm not sure what the odds would be.
I don't think we have those right now. DK is usually pretty good with having those odds up. Maybe you could find it somewhere else, but I didn't see anything extra other than the money line and over under.
No, because it's the first fight, so that makes sense.
I mean, here we could use the under 1.5 at plus 150 as a pretty good gauge to that Petrosky round 1 submission is
For
probably
sure.
going to be a pretty hefty
sure.
price. You can get a
So
good number
we-
on that.
All the fights. Let's talk about the parlay and our favorite bet, and also the underdogs that you like here.
Sure. So let's start off with the parlay. We got 2 legs already ready for you guys. Do you want to start with the first one, or do you want me to go with that first one?
I could go first. We
Let's go.
both really like Rose Namajunas here. I feel like she should be able to get it done fairly easily, and you agree. At minus 200, I think it's a good price. At minus 185 even. Oh, minus 218. Minus 200-ish.
It's actually getting down as we go. So you're still right though, because the way we said is the worst version of Rose should still be able to get the win. So just straight money line parlayed would do the trick. And so the second leg that we absolutely loved, which we broke down in the fight, was the over 1.5 in Dober versus Silva. We think they're on chins. We think that they're also very smart fighters. We're getting caught in the first 1.5 parts of the fight seems a little less likely than the odds suggest. So taking that over at, I think the line moved from the original time we looked at it, but minus 125 is what we see. So right now on DK, on DraftKings, if I take the over 1.5 in Dober versus Silva and Rose Namajunas money line, you're getting a line of about plus 160 for that parlay.
That's pretty good. And even taking Drew Dober for John Silva over 1.5 rounds just by itself is not even bad, in my opinion.
Not at all. Not at all. We just like the line so much that adding that extra value to Rose's money line at plus 160, it almost makes it better on both sides. You're getting that value a little bit more for the over in case someone gets knocked out, or if Rose is, the Carla Esparza version where the fight ends up really tight, you're getting a bit of an edge for both.
Yeah. So what's your favorite bet here? Like, not talking about odds or whatever, just overall, what's your favorite bet?
Yeah, so me, man, I'm all about the numbers. And I would have to say that the widest line tends to be one of my favorite bets to look into, at least. And I just think I think Ange Loosa has a much higher chance of winning this fight than the line suggests. And if I'm getting a plus 300 on Ange Loosa, you can bet that I'm taking it.
I would myself look at this, especially after round 1, because Bonfim does tire. And if he wins, it's going to be probably by finish around 1. So there's something there. For me personally, I also like an underdog here. I like Damon Blatcher. I feel like Montel Jackson is good, but
I knew you were going to say that one, so I was just going to give you
that.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
guys, non-stop. Damon.
I'm glazing Damon right here, bro. Even against Bautista on short notice, like when he fought a week prior, I feel like he even won that fight against Bautista, and Bautista is really good. Bautista's super high level, and I feel like Montel Jackson just ain't there.
High level, bro. I've been on that boy for years. But I thought for a long time, I thought Bautista was one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC. When your only loss is a crazy, I think it was a submission by Corey Sandhagen.
He did get.
Was one of his.
He did get actually flying knee by Trevin Jones.
Jones, yeah.
Which is a bad luck, obviously, but like he is.
That was later, yeah. For me, like his come up, it's like I felt like no one was talking about him.
He's really good. He's really good in my opinion.
He's great.
Oh no!
Yeah,
never mind. He just got knocked out. Like he knocked out Jones. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I think we've talked about everything. Now
Mariya deserves a bit of a shout out, just as we were talking about. I think we both share an opinion on that, just to give it a final look. Like, do your homework, check out the weigh-in, see how she's living her life for this coming week, and make the call, because that line is severely wide, especially with what Emiel's been saying about the way he sees Santos as a fighter.
See what's up. Like, does she have a home? Does she not? I feel like, ironically, I feel like this is important. Like, I'm being serious here. I'm being serious. It might have sounded as a joke, but I'm serious here. If you're homeless, obviously there's something going on. You're not going to be mentally 100% there. So if she is good mentally, she has coaches with her.
Honestly, while we were talking about, I checked Instagram just to see like that's the best status update in 2024, and it looks like things are in the right place for us. So I have to echo your line there. That was a good look, and you know that line isn't going to get any better. If anything, it could get wider. So you're going to get value as the week goes on.
Yeah, and like besides the fighting, I hope she's all right. I think
exactly.
It might have come over a bit weird what I said, but like I hope she's good, like mentally, physically, and she's good in life. Like besides the fighting.
Yeah, your delivery was very stand-up comedian-like, but I'm sure you were just trying to be very thoughtful.
So I'm sorry if you're watching this. I didn't mean it as a joke. Don't beat me up.
And with that said, I think we're good. I mean, if we do that well on UFC Denver, imagine what we could do with pay-per-views, bro.
Exactly. So thank you guys for watching. If there's anything you guys would like for us to add next, let us know. And we'll see you next week.
Let's get it, boy.